We are doing Wisdom of the Wilderness. Please take it away, Jake.
So this is class 6, is that correct?
I've lost track of time. The time of seasons.
I think it's class 6. So yes, we start in Of Time and the Seasons is the name of the chapter 5. There's another quote from St. John of the Cross to start us out. How do you endure, O life, not living where you live? The cicadas taught me about the present moment, which got me thinking about time. In our culture, we see time as a moving stream, beginning way back in the past somewhere, flowing forward through history to the present and on into the future. We can almost feel its movement, slow and plodding in our youth, passing quickly as we age, only rarely standing still. We apply linear measurements to the flow of time, minutes, hours, centuries, eons. These allow us a certain sense of security. We believe that all events happen in the orderly, reliable procession of the stream of time. As our technology becomes more complex and our measurements more precise, time takes on an almost palpable quality. It seems substantial, objectively real, a thing to possess and use. It even becomes a commodity. Time is money, we say. And like money, we never have enough of it. We want to spend time wisely, invest it profitably, save it wherever we can. Like money, time is not to be wasted, lest we run out of it. And like money, time drives us, obsesses us, enslaves us. We easily admit that money is a medium of exchange, that it only represents the goods and services it can buy. But while money can be held, touched, and seen as well as counted, time permits only the counting. When we try to hold it, it is already gone. Physicists have been proving the insubstantiality of time for generations. Time is so interwoven with space, matter, and energy as to be finally indistinguishable as a thing in itself. Such observations interest us, but most of us don't spend much time reflecting on them. It would be a waste of time. I have in my mind a conversation with a voice-equipped cicada. Quote, "You must know time very well," I tell him. "You spend your years under the earth in darkness and come out so briefly to the light. Tell me something about the nature of time. What is it, really?" Time, I hear him ask me. What is time? That's what I want you to tell me. I'm talking about things like how long you stay underground or how long you have in the trees, or maybe, I add with a male bonding grin, how long it takes you to, mate. How long? What is how long? Well, how long is about time? Like how many times a second you vibrate your belly drum when you sing, or how many seconds or minutes or hours your lovemaking lasts. Seconds, minutes, hours, they're measurements of time. Ah, yes, time. He is beginning to sound like a Zen master. I try again. Think about years, winters, springs, summers. You must know these very well. Cooling, warming, stilling, moving, dark, light, yes? Yes, that's it. That's what I want to know about. But my mental cicada is now in full Zen master mode, and he seems to like it. You tell me, Jerry, what is time? I have to stop the fantasy, for my imaginary cicada can take me no further than my own thoughts normally do. In thinking of time, I keep coming around to emptiness. If I could, I would ask a real cicada about the present moment. But I know there would be no understanding, because even the present moment is a time measurement. It is the supposed point of now, mentally drawn on an imaginary line between our concepts of past and future. Nature, I think, knows nothing of concepts of time or of the present. Nature, our own and that of the world around us, lives in presence instead of in the present. Rather than moving through time, it simply exists in cycles and successions, sound and silence, light and darkness, birth and death, activity and stillness, courting and nesting, eating and sleeping. Everything is rhythms. Everything is seasons. Spring comes every year. It was a very human Zen master from Korea who planted the mystery of the seasons in me. It was the late 1970s, and we at the Shalom Institute had invited Song San Soen Sa Nim to be part of a conference of spiritual leaders at the National Cathedral. He was a small muffin of a man. Now, I'm going to stop there because I've read a lot and I teach literature and I'm a writer, and I've never heard a man described as a muffin before. That means maybe I can describe somebody else as a croissant, which is a very cool thing. All right. He was a small muffin of a man, out of whom giggles erupted repeatedly like startled butterflies. He was a moonbeam of relief in the conference's heavy clouds of theology. Not only was this guy a muffin, but he was a moonbeam. I got to meet this guy. When it was his turn to speak, he began with the old story of a Zen student who had a profound question to ask his master. After looking in several places, the student finally found his master cleaning out a latrine with a wooden stick. The student bowed and asked, "What is the Buddha, truly?" The master immediately held up the stick and said, "Shit on a stick." The point, as I understand it, is that absolute reality is exactly what's going on here and now. Nothing more, nothing less. What was going on there and then, as I heard the story, was that I was sitting next to my son, Paul. He was about 10 at the time. I had brought him along thinking he might enjoy the cathedral and learn something about the work I was doing, which has always been a mystery to my kids. Paul had done his best to remain awake and dignified during the conference, but it hadn't been easy. Even I had been a bit bored. But when the Zen master began his story, Paul immediately sat up, attentive and smiling. And upon hearing the word shit spoken in those holy Gothic halls, Paul nearly exploded. "Shit!" Paul tried to whisper, "He said shit in church." Then, helplessly, Paul became a little Zen master himself. He chortled and sputtered and hugged his stomach and turned all pink and rolled on his side in the pew until the laughter tumbled out of him and over all the people in the audience who were pondering the deeper meanings of the Buddha being shit on a stick. Paul's laughter caught us all, and broke us open in a little satori moment, and we all laughed, and the Zen master laughed the biggest laugh, and then everyone laughed harder, and it was nothing but delight. In the social hour that followed, Paul went off exploring the cathedral, but he kept returning to me and whisper giggling, "Shit on a stick, shit on a stick." I signed a copy of my just published first book for the Zen master, inscribing it with something about my great respect and admiration for him. When I gave it to him, he wrote an inscription in Korean in one of his little Zen texts and offered it to me with a glance over in Paul's direction. "Shit on a stick," he said, and everyone started laughing again. I asked him to translate the inscription he had given me. Slowly pointing to each character, he read, "For Jerry, the tongue has no bone. Spring comes every year. Love me." I bowed and smiled knowingly, though I didn't have a clue what the words meant. I had expected something like, "For Jerry, with gratitude for your contributions to the integration of psychology and spirituality." So funny, like it's such a Western thing to think, right? The other guy's talking about how he has no bone in his tongue,
I know.
and he wants him to like give him this esteemable phrase. But I got that there is no bone in the tongue and spring comes every year. Okay, I'd sit with it a while. Of knowing. It was nearly 15 years before nature began to show me the meaning. Of course, the tongue has no bone and spring comes every year. That's the way things are. And that's the point. Everything is just the way it is. Present moment or not, no matter what ideas and concepts we have, things are still just what they are. Nature always tells me this. I sit and gaze at a tree in the spring, new green buds just emerging, dark, moist bark glistening in the sun. I think about new life, resurrection, hope. I might even give the tree a personality and a story. She stood steadfastly through the winter, patiently gesturing her springtime possibilities, and now she begins her birthing. In a few weeks, she will be a pale green exuberance. But beneath my lovely thoughts, nature invites me to really look at the tree and just see her for herself. As my gaze deepens, all commentary stops, and there's just the being of the tree being tree, beyond even my label of tree, and me being me with no self-images, and it's all one complete, immediate being experience, breathlessly exquisite. Sometimes in my imagination can symbolize a tree beautifully, but it's still commentary. And commentary requires that I set myself apart from the tree, make an object of it, in order to have thoughts and feelings about it. Even if my feelings are strong, even if I fall in love with it, which happens very easily with certain trees, I am still separate, me standing here adoring the tree there. What I feel is not tree feeling, but only my heart's response to it. Need I say that this is true with human relationships as well as with anything else in creation? At times in my life, I have tried to resign myself to an inevitable subject-object separation. But love keeps wanting to bridge the gap, to bring all separations together. Love and nature. And I'm not sure there is a difference. Show me that although separation may be a necessary part of the cycles of experience, it is not meant to be constant. The gift of joining, of direct participative communion, is a very real possibility in every moment. When my comments cease and my symbols evaporate and my feelings dissolve into pure presence, I join the tree in its real, immediate being. Then I, quote, know nothing about the tree or me or anything else. What I feel is not emotion, but sheer perception. The touch of breeze on my skin, the pressure of ground on my feet, my heart's pulse, the needle entering my vein for chemotherapy. Whatever is there, I have nothing to show for the experience, nothing to hold on to within it, but I am, for the moment at least, in the fullness of life, as the tree is always. This is the wilderness of being. It is what wisdom showed me, where nature has always taken me. It is her home, her dwelling, the place of her abiding, the sacred household of being as it is, where all creation is at home in its wildness and nothing is domesticated. Sometimes I picture wisdom standing in the doorway of her being home, sweetly calling me toward herself. Or she might come up from behind and gently nudge me there. Sometimes she shows up inside me and I find myself unknowingly urged in that direction from within. And occasionally, perhaps impatient with my stumbling, she becomes a mother mountain lion, taking me by the neck in her powerful mouth, carrying me home, setting me down exactly where I need to be. I still have the Zen master's little book, and I hold it in my hands now, gazing at his inscription. I see traces of her presence here in the 27 characters he wrote with a felt-tipped pen on this now yellowed page. Perhaps wisdom moved his hand as he wrote, but I think it was far more intimate, more interwoven than that. No matter, it is wisdom's message and his message. Old ink, yellow page. The just is-ness of life. No commentary, shit on a stick, this book in my hands, these words in my mind, no bone in the tongue. Spring does come every year.
We're
You
still
know, and it's so interesting that those last lines, it's just so matter of fact. He's saying there's no commentary, and it's very rare that somebody, especially from the West, can write with no commentary. Of the seasons. Well, let me ask you a question first out there in the audience. I lead a lot of spiritual formation groups. One of the questions I ask people all the time is, where do you find that the commentary of your mind is the loudest? Like, is it a particular place that you're in when you're by yourself, if you're in a crowd? Like, when does your mind start doing a running commentary, and then eventually you have to be like, what the hell is going on with my mind right now, and get back to yourself? Does anybody have places that really start that commentary and all of a sudden your mind just runs off with itself?
at night and dreams.
Sue said at night in dreams.
At night in dreams. That's your subconscious running off with your mind. That's really interesting. Yeah.
Or in the middle of the night when you wake up and can't get back to sleep. When you can't get back to sleep because your mind is.
Yeah. And so, Denise, when you wake up at that point in time and you realize your mind is running off, is there any kind of practice that you have, or is there anything that can take you back out of your mind and enable you to get back into sleep mode?
Sometimes I get up and have a ginger snap.
No, you were going to say you hit the whiskey, but ginger snap's okay. That's good. No. And so the ginger snap, that's interesting. Is it just the ritual of eating it that calms you down?
I have no idea, other than sometimes I try deep breathing, but that doesn't always work. I maybe just that I'm hungry, and so the ginger snap takes care of it.
That would be a great Zen answer. Somebody's like, "Oh, do you meditate?" You're like, "Nah, eat a ginger snap." There you go. Your ginger snap is your shit on a stick, actually.
Probably, but it tastes better.
I always count backwards from 57. I don't know why that is, but I find that very centered.
So do you always make it to 1 or 0, or do you fall asleep in the process?
I'll fall asleep in the process.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's good that you have these little practices that bring you back into sleep, because some people can go all night without ever, going back into sleep. Yeah. All right. Well, this one's called Of the Seasons. And so do summer, fall, and winter. My inner commentary about the seasons is very complex. It has to do with movements of earth and sun. At one level, which I can call sense commentary, I directly see the sun rise in the morning, move across the sky, and set in the west in the evening. But at another level, my thought commentary, I know it's not the sun moving, it's the earth. My mind knows that seasons happen because of something we might call an imperfection. The Earth's axis is tilted in relation to the sun. If everything were straight lines and right angles, the Earth's equator would always be in line with the sun, and we would have no seasons. Each day would be exactly the same all year round. But straight lines and right angles seldom happen in nature. So the sun does not rise and set exactly in the east and west. In summer, as the earth turns, the sun appears and disappears over the horizon somewhat toward the north, appearing to go higher in the sky, making longer days, warming things. In winter, its apparent path is more southward and lower. The days are shorter, the nights longer, everything colder. The sun appears to change, but really it's the earth, turning on its tilted axis once a day and revolving around the sun once a year. This is how my thought commentary explains it. Outdoors, though, I could still swear it is the sun doing the moving. It clearly rises somewhere toward the east, glides slowly across the sky, and sets in the west. As the seasons change, I see the sunrises moving northward and southward along the eastern horizon. The sunsets doing the same in the west. Sometimes, watching a sunrise, thoughts stop and senses have full reign. At other times, my senses fade a little and I think about what I'm experiencing. Often, another commentary happens, something more aesthetic, a sense of beauty or of joy or reverence. I could call this a feeling commentary, my interior emotional response to the experience. There are probably many other commentaries besides thoughts, senses, and feelings, but I see no reason to enumerate them. Sometimes one commentary comes to the fore and suppresses the others. Sometimes they all swirl together in one inordinately wonderful experience of nonsensical sensing. Sometimes I don't care. And occasionally, more and more often now, the commentaries stop altogether. And there I am, open to everything, making nothing of anything, and everything is just as it is. I am like I was as a baby. I feel the warmth of sunlight, the cold of night air, but no labels. I breathe, and it's simply breathing happening. Sometimes snow falls, taste of snowflakes on my boneless tongue. Horizons. To appreciate the seasons fully, you need a horizon. You need a completeness of sky, a place where a view of it can be horizontal as well as vertical. I have grown accustomed to horizons, and a part of me goes hungry when I've been too long without one. My house is surrounded by other buildings, so I often went to two nearby places that have wonderful horizons. One is the reservoir where I took my canoe. The other is an expanse of fields and meadows on gentle hills about 10 miles to the north. Now my body is too frail to handle a canoe or even to walk the fields, but my memories of being there are sharp and clear. In the place of fields and meadows, there is a giant tree standing nearly alone with only a few saplings and vines in attendance. I don't know if the tree is female or male, or even if the species has gender, but to me, she seems a matriarch, a great solitary queen. I watched the tree first through winter, twisted dancing branches caught frozen against the gray sky, black lines, even more black, dressed with snow, still and stark, even when the wind growls and shifts. I walk eastward over a small hill in the February dawn, and there she stands, hefty in trunk and wide at the top, like a huge stalk of broccoli, more within the sky than against it, the dawn lightning behind her. And she is a deep black dancing skeleton, holding still while I am watching her. As I stand there, the sun's round yellow disk rises from the horizon a little to my right, south of the tree, and her black branches glisten. In March, I return, wanting to try to sketch her twisted branches before her leaves come out. I am just in time, for already she seems to wear a vague haze of greenness about her, a halo on her outer edges so delicate, that I am not certain it is really there. I sit on the hill and sketch, striving to follow the intricate, jagged angles of her branches in the dawn. The sun rises again, this time almost directly behind the tree's great trunk, and I have to move an inch to the right so the light will not blind me, and the tree in silhouette is radiantly black against the cold sunrise fire. I can draw for only a few minutes before the sun burns round her dark trunk and branches, and her black is all radiance, and my eyes, even squinting, can no longer bear the brightness. Does anybody have a fate? So I'm going to ask you a question. I want everybody to close their eyes for a second. Close your eyes. And I want you to think of a favorite tree that you had sometime in your life. Picture the tree as much as you can. And now open your eyes. And what one word would you say in order to describe that tree?
Enveloping.
Enveloping?
Peace.
Peace?
Big or tall.
Majestical.
Majestical? Big and tall?
Red.
What was it?
Red.
Fat.
Color red. Color.
Red. Yep.
Yeah.
Red.
Smell.
Smell.
What was that one?
Smell.
Spelt. Spelt.
Smell like the sense.
Oh, smell.
It's a lilac tree.
The lilac tree,
Oh, okay.
which are the best.
Yeah, it's interesting, to read him write about this tree and then to think about trees in our lives. There's a wonderful quote by a writer named Munia Khan, who says that we should think about trees more often because trees kind of give us, the air that we breathe as a gift. And they shelter us. We play in their leaves. They're homes for birds and squirrels. And they do all these things for everyone, and really ask for very little in return.
And then we cut them down.
And then we cut them down. I come back 3 mornings in a row, just before sunrise, trying to complete the sketch. Each morning the lines seem different. She is the same, and yet she has changed. I think I've caught her. My sketch will be proof that she dances in the night when no one is looking. Yes, her branches are not quite the same. I'm certain that one went up there and now today it's going off to the left instead, but she is implacable, so still in the dawn that she'd make you believe she's never moved in all her years, even that she's winter dead now, inanimate, but I know better. Each morning I erase some lines, change them, add some new ones. I smile gently, acknowledging my inability to keep up with her. And each morning I must shift my position a few inches to the right to protect my eyes from the sun that is rising a little more northward each day. The sunrises are virtually galloping northward now, and soon it will be the vernal equinox, the equal night of springtime, when the sun is halfway along its northward journey on the horizon, halfway to summer. The tree, I am sure, knows all about this. In perfect direct experience of tree being through seasons too numerous to be counted. When she was young, perhaps her virgin leaves bent toward the sunrises, following them along the horizon, almost reaching as my eyes do. But now she is old, so heavily barked and deeply rooted and fully branched that she holds the earth and sky that hold her. And now she is simply greening because spring comes every year. In the far high distances of her, in the verdant aura around her outer edges, her newness is about to birth. And then there will be little sprouting leaf petals that might turn in their own slight ways to follow the sun. But no one will ever notice their tiny turnings, not even I who watch her so closely. She is too huge, her greenness too high, too far away. As the equinox passes, I see the sunrises march northward from the tree, more than a sun disk's width each day. Over the next couple of months, the northward movement of sunrises slows until in late June it becomes imperceptible. This is the summer solstice, sun standing still, when the sun seems to cease its movement along the horizon, rising at its northernmost point and making its highest arc across the sky. It is the longest day and the shortest night of the year. The tree is now lush in summer morning mist, exuberant in the warmth of afternoons. Through summer, the sunrises and sunsets move back toward the south each day, gradually picking up speed, falling south through the autumnal equinox. The tree's oval leaves turn crimson, a few at a time at first, then all rushing to keep up. Ruckus vectors of geese fly, and the leaves fall. Chill comes. The tree's deep scarred bark seems to become darker as the sunrises and sunsets slow in their southward movement. The sun's arc is lower, the days shorter, nights longer. Then the place of sunrise stands still again at winter solstice, and the tree is once more a black skeleton, dead if you didn't know better. Then, ever so slowly, the place of sunrise begins to move northward again. So the next segment is called Just a Little Grace. On a winter evening, I rest my back on the tree's great trunk and watch the sun set far across a mounded white snow meadow. Ruby roundness settling steadily behind darkening tree bones in the distance. Pink splashes through the western sky. For a long moment, I am inside this particular sunset, rolling in it like a child in new hay. I am simply experiencing. I must be the experience, for it is all there is. Then self-awareness comes, recognizing the beauty and the bliss, wanting to prolong it, somehow to hold it forever. And I know I am here, having this experience. The self-consciousness makes me feel just a little separate from the sky and the soft bark of the tree on my back and the sun now gone beyond the horizon. Now I am an observer, an experiencer, and this sunset has become something I am perceiving, an experience I am having. In an instant, thoughts come, memories of other sunsets, a slight wishing for someone with whom to share the moment, a little appreciation of God's goodness. The thoughts bring other feelings, wonder, longing, thanksgiving, sadness, hope, praise. Thoughts and feelings grow into interpretations and interpretations into commentaries. I reflect upon the symbolism of sunsets. I even remember my astronomy and try to experience the sunset as the earth turning, the winter here because the tilted earth is revolving around the sun. And then finally, my thoughts take me with them toward what I have yet to do this evening and tomorrow's busy schedule. It is late, I think, and time to go home. I walk away from the tree without looking back, as if she were not even there. I was the experience, then the experiencer, then a commentator and interpreter, and maybe even a bit of a controller. And finally, I am gone, simply gone from the here and now, gone away from the tree and the last pink light in the sky. I do not hear the crunch of my feet upon the snow meadow. For in my mind, I am already home, working on what needs doing for tomorrow. And what he's describing there is, what happens to the best of us, even great poets or mystics or whatever, is that it's kind of an impossibility to stay in that kind of moment forever. Because most people's nervous systems are simply not ready for that experience to go on for eternity. So you get little glimpses of these moments that let you know what's possible, what our consciousness is possible to do. But we also shouldn't try to hold on to those moments, because that's a controlling aspect as well. So sometimes it's okay to have a beautiful moment and then to realize that you can't stay in that moment, forever. It is easy for me to be judgmental about this sequence of consciousness, to say my first simple experience was so much more pure and pristine and fundamentally beautiful than the commentary that followed. But here's the thing, it's all experience, every bit of it. The oneness and the separation, the immediacy and the distancing, it all happens when it happens. And when it happens, it's as absolutely real as the snow and the tree and the sky. With just a little bit of grace, I can be here, really exist here, present, open, available, immediate. With just a little grace, I can see the sunset, feel the cold air, sense the beauty, feel my reactions, experience my thoughts arising and the emotions they engender, perceive my little attempts at control, experience my commentary, notice my leaving, and maybe as my mind takes off somewhere on its own, I might even say goodbye to the tree. It can all be an experience within the present moment, with thoughts, images, senses, and feelings all embraced together, all unified in being now. I know it doesn't happen this way all the time, not even very much of the time, but the bare naked possibility of it, the fact that life can be lived with such presence, is a wellspring of endless hope for me. And I want it. I yearn for it. I give myself to it because I have felt it and cannot shake the sense of its perfection. I stake my life on it because for me it is the place where you and I dance into realizing our internal embrace of one another and the earth within God's endless and infinitely intimate embrace of everything. It is where the reign of heaven comes alive. It is soul freedom, love unfettered, and absolute compassion, all flowing from the tiniest gift of grace. Wisdom and willingness. I don't know where or how the gift of grace might come. Oh, this is interesting. So this is a passage that I actually used in one chapter of my thesis. I didn't know where or how the gift of grace might come. In those outdoor wilderness years, I called it the power of the slowing, the incarnate mercy of absolute nature moving into my willingness, opening my desire, deepening my relaxation, empowering my vulnerability, making me receptive to what is. It happens very rarely now, but wisdom does still come to me that way sometimes, as if her hands were touching my belly and massaging my shoulders and turning my head so I can really see and feel what is here and now, and know who I truly am. I'm not so sure, but our willingness for such an empowerment just might be everything. I think God respects our individual integrity and will not invade us when and where we are unwelcoming. But that is not to say we are ever left alone, no matter how we feel, because wisdom keeps beckoning. From inside and outside, she does call. Moreover, and this I do not pretend to understand at all, She can, if we want it, empower our very welcoming, deepen our hospitality to herself and her world, ease our defenses, and create within us a bottomless receptivity for herself. The first chapter of the book of Proverbs says that wisdom cries out in the streets and raises her voice in open places. It's true, I'm sure, because wisdom is everywhere. The place of wilderness does not have to be outdoors. It could be anywhere. Finally, I suppose it is always inside us. Wisdom lives for us wherever our wilderness is, and whatever is nature for us. I'm going to read that again. The place of wilderness does not have to be outdoors. It could be anywhere. Finally, I suppose it is always inside us. Wisdom lives for us wherever our wilderness is, in whatever is nature for us, the place closest to our birth and birthing. And she calls us there, and when we go there, we find ourselves strangely welcomed and welcoming. And if we are willing for it, which I guess means simply relaxing into our wanting, she comes to show us what we need to know. And so in the Bible, in the Old Testament, the Jewish people wander in the wilderness for 40 years. Wilderness is always a testing place, especially in the Bible. And then, of course, after Jesus is baptized, and the dove descends upon him in the Jordan River, he goes out into the wilderness as a testing period before he begins his actual teaching. So it's a really interesting thing in that wilderness, and especially in shamanic cultures too, the wilderness, like if you're in the desert, in an actual desert, in physical environment, then you can better move into the desert experience of your own self. So outer and inner environments come together in a holistic kind of understanding when we're really present. So it's not just that we would have a wilderness within us, but sometimes, like when I teach at Ghost Ranch in Abiquiu, New Mexico, it's just a vast open breadth of desert, and when I'm there, I find myself teaching much more about the desert and the wilderness within us than I would when I'm leading spiritual retreats in an urban center, because it just doesn't make as much sense because we're looking and we're ensconced in the wilderness, whereas in an urban center, we can be surrounded by, skyscrapers, and can be a kind of wilderness too, but it's not the same kind.
So how does he define wilderness then? Just a time of not knowing where you're going, or?
Well, he says the place of wilderness does not have to be outdoors. It could be anywhere. But finally, I suppose it is always inside us. Wisdom lives for us wherever our wilderness is. So wherever your wilderness is, your wilderness could be in your room. You could go through kind of a wilderness or testing experience in your room. So I guess wilderness would be the opposite of, or maybe not the opposite, but of just absolute, maybe like creature comfort, or just absolute conditioning comfort, where you're not opening yourself up to vaster expanses, whether within yourself or in your physical environment. So somebody who, say, from a very crowded area of Seattle, who goes to Abiquiu, New Mexico, will experience a difference in wilderness, right? They will experience an expansiveness of the landscape. But I would add, because I led retreats there many times, and most of the people who go to the retreats are from urban centers, that 2 or 3 days into the retreat, if they're a week-long retreat, that when I start talking to those people, they find that their inner landscape is changing and it's expanding and it's opening up. And so the things that bothered them in the city, or the thoughts that were on their mind in the city, start to release and let go. And so their inner landscape is starting to match the outer landscape. Interestingly enough, something that happens, usually the retreats, if they're week-long, it's 6 nights, 7 days. And so on the 7th day, they'll leave. And we usually have one last session that morning before they leave to take a shuttle. It's about an hour and a half away to the Santa Fe, New Mexico airport. And they'll all to a T, it's usually between 8 and 10 people, they'll say that they already feel themselves tightening up thinking about going back home. And that's always an interesting thing. And I always, ask them why, because everybody has different reasons. But a lot of them, they say I'm a different me there. I have more worries, I have more stress, I have more anxiety. And even though I'm totally relaxed now and my consciousness has expanded, the drive towards the airport, being at the airport, by the time I get home, I'll mostly be back to the person I was before I left. It might help them a little bit, and it does. I mean, it really does. Sometimes they're a little hard on themselves, but it does help them. But what they're saying is something that's really true, is that our physical environment can open us up. It can constrict us too. If you take somebody from the country and you throw them in the middle of Times Square, New York, they might have some issues. But it can constrict us, but it can open us up, almost like a chiropractor or a massage therapist. The right location can open you up to alignment and allow you to see things differently. And I think when a lot of people from urban centers go out to the desert or a place of emptiness, all of a sudden their mind and their consciousness is allowed to just expand. It's allowed to gaze upon things and not even to have to focus so much as just to gaze upon expansiveness, and that brings something out of themselves as well. So as a person who has long, for 25 years now, written about the power of place and led retreats on place and location, I do find it interesting when people go either to the desert or I sometimes up at Seneca Lake, I lead retreats in the summer. It's surrounded by vineyards. The lake is deep and beautiful. And people from New York City or Hartford, Connecticut, who come to those retreats, you'll just see them start to relax the second or third day, now that they're outside of Manhattan, or wherever they're from. So there is, I do find a definite, synchronization is possible. It doesn't always happen between inner and outer environment. All right, let's see here. The first chapter of the book of Proverbs, oh, no, read that, okay. Beneath the sky and in the field or forest or on the water, or even alone in my room, she will bring my attention to the horizon, and there to sun and earth and moon, and all the sounds and presences of creation inside and out. There in her given moments, everything is what it is, and I know I am part of it, and I can have any thought or feeling I want, and it's absolutely fine because it's just part of her day. And now, through God's grace, it's just part of mine. So I don't have to make anything of it. Whatever is going on is sufficient. I don't have to work at it, nor do I have to restrain myself. I don't have to try to be assertive, nor placid, nor searching, nor accepting. I don't have to try to do or be anything. But if trying is what I'm doing, that's fine too. I am free to be just who I am. Wisdom calls and leads me into my own nature, wordlessly encouraging me to be natural. If I try to be natural, she will whisper, "No, no," in my ear and take me by the hand, or if need be, by the scruff of my neck and show me step by step how to be myself without trying. When I get there, I see no trying was ever needed. It's not something to do, not even a way to be, but more like a place to be in, a place to stand, a place I go to that's really inside me all the time. It is home, my true home, the hearth of my spirit. It is when I am in this abiding place that everything comes together. Experience and concept, beauty and truth, senses and thoughts, responses and comments, primal being and scientific knowledge. They all become one being, one experience, one appreciation, one sparkle in the radiance of being alive. That seems like a very beautiful point to leave off at. The radiance of being alive. You go all take that with you out of this room and spread the radiance of being alive to all of your fellow Hearthstonian peoples. Any comments or final questions or thoughts on the readings today?
I think we're good.
Good.
Nothing on the book. Where do you do the retreats on Seneca Lake?
It's a place called Cobblestone Springs. And it was started by two sisters of St. Joseph's from the Rochester House.
Okay.
And I've known them ever since they started it for the last 13 years. And I've usually gone up at least once a year to stay with them and lead retreats for them.
Where is it located on the lake? North end or south end?
It's in Dundee, so
Okay.
it's on the opposite side of Burdett.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we'll actually be there, my wife and I, for anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks this fall.
What state are we talking about?
New York.
New York, Seneca Lake. Alan, come on.
I should know
There is something north of Binghamton.
that. Yeah, I didn't get on much. All
Yeah,
right.
Seneca Lake, yeah, so it's in the wine region there, the Finger Lakes. If you look from the sky, they all look like long fingers.
I came from Cayuga Lake, Ithaca, so
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's- And my mom's in Ithaca, so.
I know where she
Well,
is.
Okay,
everybody have a pleasant week,
Okay. Thank you.
and I will
Thank you,
see
you
you
too.
next Tuesday.
yes.